Hi guys,
Hello there, guys,
it's Mr. Creighton,
and Mrs. Klein.
and we're here with your second podcast of the unit. We're looking at section 1 of lesson 1, which is looking at the end of the Roman Empire in the West.
All right, you guys, Rome's first emperor, Caesar Augustus, you might remember this, ended 100 years of civil war and expanded the boundaries of the Roman Empire. When he died in 14 CE, few Romans could imagine that their empire would ever end. Yet by the year 500, the western half of the empire had collapsed. What caused the fall of the mighty Roman Empire?
Guess we'll find out. Problems in the late empire. There was no single reason for the end of the Roman Empire. Instead, historians point to a number of problems that combined to bring about its fall. These are political instability, economic and social problems, and weakening frontiers.
All right, you guys, that political instability. Okay, Rome never solved the problem of how to peacefully transfer political power to a new leader. Okay? When an emperor died, ambitious rivals with independent armies often fought each other for control of the empire.
Even when the transfer of power happened without conflict, there was no good system for selecting the next emperor.
All right, they also had some economic and social problems, you guys. Besides political instability, the empire suffered from economic and social problems. To finance Rome's huge armies, its citizens had to pay heavy taxes. These taxes weakened the economy and drove many people into poverty, and then trade also suffered.
Other social problems plagued the empire, including growing corruption and a decline in the spirit of citizenship. A rise in crime made the empire's cities and roads unsafe.
Right. The next area that caused one of the reasons why Rome fell had to do with weakening frontiers. A final problem was the weakening of the empire's frontiers, as I said. The huge size of the empire made it hard to defend, and it sometimes took weeks for leaders in Rome to communicate with their generals. Because it was so big to you guys, they had so many soldiers, and oftentimes these soldiers ultimately had little loyalty to Rome because they lived so far away from the center of the empire.
Yeah. All right, looking at the next subsection, the fall of Rome. In 330 CE, the Emperor Constantine took a step that changed the future of the Roman Empire. He moved his capital 850 miles east to the ancient city of Byzantium, which then was later named Constantinople, and now today we know as Istanbul.
Okay. The emperors in Rome soon found themselves threatened by invading Germanic tribes because, right, there's this split, right? So you've got the emperors in Rome, and then you've also got stuff going down in Constantinople. But the people in the West, the emperors, they found themselves threatened by invading Germanic tribes, and the western half of the empire began to dissolve into separate kingdoms. In the East, the empire continued for another 1,000 years.
All right, this part of the podcast, guys, we're focusing on the second part of lesson 1. It's called The Legacy of Roman Art. This will be on page 8 and 9 of your textbook. The Romans adopted many features of other cultures and blended them into their own unique culture. This was true of Roman art. The Romans were especially influenced by the art of the Greeks. In fact, historians often speak of Greco-Roman art. Rome played a vital role in passing on this tradition, which has a major influence on Western art. Romans were also great patrons, or sponsors, of art. Wealthy families decorated their homes with statues and colorful murals and mosaics.
All right, the next area, you guys, that we're going to hone in on is about 1,000 years after the fall of the empire. During the period that was called the Renaissance, Roman art was rediscovered. During the Renaissance, great artists such as Michelangelo revived the Greco-Roman style in their paintings and sculptures. A good example is the famous ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome. All right. In addition, you guys, Roman art has continued to influence painters and sculptors. So today, if you're in Washington, D.C., you can see a number of statues there that reflect a strong Roman influence. All right, you guys, moving on to section 3 on pages 10 and 11 in your history book is the legacy of Roman architecture and engineering. The Romans were skilled and clever builders. In their architecture and engineering, they borrowed ideas from the Greeks and other peoples. But the Romans improved on these ideas in ways that future engineers and architects would imitate.
All right, this next heading is architecture. The Romans learned how to use the arch, the vault, and the dome to build huge structures. The Romans used concrete to help them build much bigger arches than anyone had attempted before. The Romans did not invent the material, but they were the first to make widespread use of it. The Romans also invented a new kind of stadium, large, open-air structures that could seat thousands of spectators.
All right, the grand style of Roman buildings has inspired many architects through the centuries. You can see Roman influence in the design of many modern churches, banks, and government buildings. A fine example is the Capitol Building, the home of the U.S. Congress in Washington, D.C.
Our next heading is engineering. In addition to architecture, the Romans also improved engineering. They were the greatest builders of roads, bridges, and aqueducts in the ancient world. Their techniques set the standard of road building for 2,000 years. The Romans also set a new standard for building aqueducts. They created a system of aqueducts for Rome that brought water from about 60 miles away to the homes of the city's wealthiest citizens, as well as to its public baths and fountains.
So long, guys.
See ya!